Mara and Clara were more than just friends. They were practically sisters. They lived in the same compound, shared meals, homework, and even secrets. From their nursery school days, they did everything together. Whether it was eating from the same lunchbox, failing the same math test, or whispering secrets during night preps, they were inseparable. Teachers used to call them two halves of a mango, always sweet and always together. Clara came from a slightly more privileged background. Her parents worked with a big company and were well known in the neighborhood. Mara's side was different. Her parents were simple traders, managing their small shop and doing their best to provide for the family. But these differences never mattered to the girls. Their bond was pure. After secondary school, things changed. Clara's parents were transferred to another city for work. And just like that, their bond began to fade. The goodbye was teary. They promised to call, to write, to visit, but as life would have it, silence grew between them like a wall. Years passed. Then one fateful Thursday afternoon, Clara was sitting in the back seat of her tinted Toyota Highlander, scrolling through her phone as the driver crawled through the chaotic Lagos traffic near Ojuelegba. Suddenly, she caught sight of a woman by the roadside roasting corn. The woman had thick braids tucked into a net cap, her face stained with sweat and smoke. Her wrapper was torn slightly at the hem, her slippers uneven. But something about her eyes, something about her posture. Clara leaned forward. "No way," she whispered. "Is that Mara?" She rolled down the window, waved dramatically, and shouted, "Ah! Mara! Is this what you're doing now? Roasting corn? My God, see life oh! The same Mara that used to beat me in math tests. So this is your office now." The other sellers and buyers turned to look. Some laughed. Mara didn't say a word. She calmly turned the roasted corn over the fire, her expression blank. But her heart was burning. Burning, not from the fire, but from the shame. From the memory. From the betrayal of a friendship that was once everything. Before the street smoke and car fumes, before roasted corn and mockery, there was laughter. Warm, innocent laughter that echoed through the narrow spaces between zinc-roofed buildings. Mara and Clara didn't just live close to each other, they were practically twins born to different mothers. Back in the Aguda compound, a small community in the city, the two girls were a daily sight. If you saw Mara, just look beside her, Clara was there, chewing the same biscuit or holding the same skipping rope. They sat together in school. They fought over who had the prettier socks. They shared secrets under the mango tree in the compound's backyard. They were known by everyone. Mango twins, the neighbors would call them. Where Mara go, Clara go. Mara's family lived in the front one-bedroom face me I face you. Her father, Baba Tunde, sold second-hand shoes in Yaba Market. Her mother, Mama Tunde, fried akara early in the morning for office-goers. Life was tough, but there was always love, always food, even if it was just soaked gari and groundnut. Clara, on the other hand, lived in the self-contained flat at the back of the compound. Her parents both worked at the National Petroleum Company. They had a car, a red Peugeot 504, and a generator that rumbled to life during power outages. When they cooked, the aroma of jollof rice and grilled chicken floated over the compound wall like perfume. Sometimes, Clara would sneak out chicken wings wrapped in tissue and slip it into Mara's lunchbox. They were different. But they didn't see it that way. They just loved each other. One day in primary 5, a teacher gave them an assignment on my best friend. Mara wrote 3 full pages about Clara. Clara wrote 5 pages about Mara. They handed in the papers with wide grins and tight hugs. "Even if you go to London tomorrow," Mara whispered, "you'll still be my twin." Clara giggled. "Even if you marry a soldier, I'll be your maid of honor." But slowly, life began to push them apart, like the tide pulling away from the shore. It began with small things. When Clara's father was promoted to regional manager, they stopped joining compound children for evening games. "It's not safe," her mother said. They began going to a private school, Grinnell International, where school fees were more than Mara's family's monthly earnings. Yet they still made time. Clara would sneak over to Mara's house to eat roasted yam. Mara would wait at the gate after school just to wave at Clara as the driver picked her up. Then came SS3, the final year of secondary school. Mara got 9 credits. Clara got 7. It didn't matter to them. What mattered was that they both passed. They spent the night writing on each other's shirts with markers, promising that nothing would ever separate them. But life doesn't always keep childhood promises. 3 months later, Clara's parents got transferred to Port Harcourt. They were moving. For good. The whole compound came out to see them off that Sunday morning. Clara cried so much she could barely breathe. She held onto Mara's hand like a lifeline. "I'll write. I'll call. I swear I'll visit." Mara nodded, trying to be strong. "Don't forget me. I can never." The car door closed. The red Peugeot backed out slowly. Mara stood at the gate long after it had disappeared. At first, there were letters, long, handwritten ones with smiley faces in the margins. There were a few phone calls too, though Mara had to use Maman Ketch's phone shop down the street. But over time, the letters stopped. The calls became fewer. Then nothing. Mara would sometimes hold the last letter Clara sent and whisper, "What did I do wrong?" Life moved on. Years later, Mara had changed. Not completely, but enough. She had dreams, but she also had a mother who fell sick, younger siblings who couldn't go to school, and a landlord who banged the door on the 5th of every month. So, she found something she could do: roast corn. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. And now here she was, standing by the road, covered in smoke, flipping corn, and her childhood sister had just laughed at her in front of strangers like they were never anything more than neighbors. Mara didn't cry. She didn't beg. She just adjusted the corn on the fire and watched Clara's car fade away into traffic. But in her heart, she said, "Just wait. You'll see." They say the city changes people. But no one says how slowly it happens. Like wind reshaping a stone, little by little, until one day, the stone is unrecognizable. Clara didn't mean to forget Mara. Not at first. In the beginning, she tried. She really did. When they got to Port Harcourt, everything was new. A new house in a gated estate. A new school where everyone wore expensive perfume and spoke like they grew up in London. Clara felt like a village girl among queens. But she adjusted. Quickly. She learned to hold her fork the correct way. She started using words like bourgeois and aesthetic. Her new friends drove to school in their own cars. She stopped writing letters to Mara, not because she didn't care, but because life was loud, fast, and full of distractions. Still, sometimes at night, she would scroll through old photos, her and Mara in matching wrappers at a compound Christmas party. She would smile, then sigh, and switch back to watching TikTok videos of girls unboxing iPhones and taking vacations in Zanzibar. The distance grew. Meanwhile, across the city in Lagos, Mara was learning a different kind of life. Her father passed away 6 months after Clara left. A sudden heart attack. Just like that, the laughter in the house vanished. Her mother became a quiet shadow in the corner of their one-room apartment. Her younger brother, Tunde Jr., had to drop out of school. And Mara? Mara became the adult in the family. She woke up at 5 a.m. to grind pepper, wash clothes for neighbors, and help Mama Ireti sell locker at the roadside before running back home to bathe her siblings and help her mother sit up to eat. She didn't complain. She couldn't. One day, as she stood on the street watching a woman roast corn, she asked, "How much is a full sack?" The woman raised an eyebrow. "You want to buy corn?" Mara nodded. "I want to start roasting." The woman laughed. No easy oh. But Mara had already made up her mind. That same week, she borrowed 3,000 Nigerian nairas from Maman Ketchi and bought her first sack of corn. She built a small stand using leftover zinc and blocks behind the public toilet on Elatu Street. That's where her story really began. But while Mara was fighting to keep her family alive, Clara was climbing. After finishing university in River State, Clara moved back to Lagos, not to the compound, of course, but to a luxury apartment in Lekki. She got a job in a tech firm called Onyx Sync Solutions as a PR executive. Her salary was more than what Mara's family earned in 6 months. She changed her accent slightly. Started attending brunches in Banana Island. Went to paint and sip events. Her phone was filled with selfies, filters, and LinkedIn posts about success. But deep inside, something felt off. The laughter of the old compound was missing. The innocence of running barefoot under the rain with Mara. The small joys. The simple life. Yet, Clara kept moving forward. Until that day. That unexpected afternoon when her driver, Musa, rolled down the tinted window at Ojuelegba. And there was Mara. Roasting corn. With sweat on her forehead and smoke in her eyes. Clara could have hidden. Could have told Musa to drive. But instead, she leaned out the window, pointed, and laughed. Mara? Is this what you're doing now? Corn seller? The same Mara that used to correct my grammar. People turned to look. One man hissed. Another woman stared, frowning. But Clara didn't notice. She was too busy laughing. Mara said nothing. Not one word. She just looked at Clara the way a tree looks at a storm, steady, calm, waiting for the winds to pass. Then Clara's phone rang. She looked down. It was a message from her boss. Our new silent investor is arriving at the office tomorrow. Her name is Ms. Mara Tunde. Make her feel welcome. Her laughter froze. The corn in Mara's hand sizzled. Clara's eyes widened. Wait. Mara? Ms. Mara Tunde. The driver blinked. Madam, you know him. She couldn't answer. Because for the first time in years, Clara was speechless. The city is a strange place. It forgets your face when you're poor. It remembers your name when you rise. That night, Clara couldn't sleep. She tossed. She turned. She replayed the moment in her head over and over, the smoke, the corn, the voice of the past standing beside a rusted charcoal stove. Mara? Corn seller? How can that be? She checked the message again. It had come from the CEO himself, Mr. Eromo Seal. Our new investor and consultant is Ms. Mara Tunde. She owns the grassroots food enterprise we discussed. Her work is impressive. She's coming for a private onboarding tomorrow. Make sure her welcome is handled professionally. Mara Tunde. The same girl who used to share her snacks. The same girl who ran barefoot in the compound, danced to D-Band songs, and helped her Thai rapper when they played Mummy and Baby. Clara sat up in bed, staring at the city lights through her window in Lekki Phase 1. She felt something unusual in her chest. Was it shame? Was it fear? Or just confusion? The next morning, Clara dressed more carefully than usual. She chose a neutral blouse, soft peach in color. Not too flashy. She avoided heavy makeup. For the first time in a long while, she didn't want to impress. She just wanted to understand. By 8:30 a.m., she was already at the office. She ordered the cleaner to freshen up the VIP meeting room. She even arranged bottled water and fruit juice in glass tumblers. Everything had to be perfect. At 9 a.m. sharp, her boss walked in, and beside him stood a woman. Simple Ankara dress. Braids pulled neatly into a bun. No makeup. No loud jewelry. But she stood like royalty. And there she was. Mara. Clara nearly choked. Mara looked around the room slowly, then her eyes rested on Clara. For a second, nothing moved. No smile. No anger. Just observation. Good morning, Clara said, trying to sound confident. Mara nodded politely. Good morning. She didn't add Clara. She didn't add my friend. Nothing. Just silence. After introductions, the meeting began. Mr. Eromo Seal, unaware of the tension, spoke with excitement. Mara's company, Tunde Roots, started as a roadside corn stand, but it now supplies roasted and processed corn snacks to over 50 stores in Lagos and Port Harcourt. She also trains women on food preservation techniques and empowers single mothers through her food cooperatives. Everyone clapped. Everyone, except Clara. She was still processing. This Mara? This same Mara she laughed at yesterday? This Mara owns a company? Mara finally turned to Clara and spoke, her voice calm. Thank you for setting up the room. Clara felt small. You're welcome. But inside, her chest was burning. When the meeting ended, Clara tried to catch her alone. She followed Mara down the hallway like a child chasing an apology. Mara. Wait, please. Mara stopped. I didn't know. Yesterday, I didn't mean. I was shocked. I didn't recognize you. You recognized me, Mara said softly, turning to face her. That's why you laughed. Clara froze. Mara sighed, folding her arms. When you laughed at me yesterday, it wasn't just laughter. It was how you made me feel small. Like our friendship meant nothing. But it did. It still does, Clara began. No, Mara cut in, her voice still low, still measured. We stopped being friends the day you stopped writing. The day you forgot your roots. You see, Clara, I never stopped loving you as a sister. But the city changed you. Tears formed in Clara's eyes. I was just trying to survive. We all were, Mara said. Clara wiped her face quickly, glancing around to be sure no one saw. Her pride was cracking. What now? She asked quietly. Mara gave a small smile. Now? We work together. Professionally. As women who took different paths. That's all. And with that, she turned and walked away, leaving Clara standing in the corridor, her designer heel sinking slightly into the carpet, her throat heavy with unspoken words. That night, Clara went back to her apartment and sat on the floor, surrounded by all her framed certificates and awards. She looked around at the beauty, the comfort, the polished image she had built. But it all felt hollow. Because for the first time in her adult life, someone had shown her who she really was. And it wasn't pretty. They say the smell of roasted corn has a way of reminding people of home. But for Mara, it didn't just smell like home, it smelled like survival, like hope. After her father died, the house had become quiet. Too quiet. Her mother barely spoke. Her little brother, Tunde Jr., stopped laughing. There were days when they shared just one meal. And there were nights when the roof leaked and the only thing they had to cover themselves was prayer. Mara refused to let that be her story. She remembered how people always gathered around the corner of Agundal Street to buy roasted corn from an old woman named Mama Nkechi. The woman had died the year before, and since then, nobody filled that gap. Mara decided that was her chance. She borrowed a small charcoal stove from a neighbor. She used 3,000 Nigerian nairas borrowed from her mother's church friend to buy her first sack of corn. It was risky, but she was determined. She built her stand with old wood and zinc from a nearby construction site. A piece of nylon served as a shade from the sun. That was how Tunde Corn Delight was born. Her first day? She sold 6 ears of corn. That was all. People passed by, staring at her like she was lost. Pretty girl like you, roasting corn, some of them whispered. Others giggled behind their hands. She wanted to cry. But she remembered her father's voice, if the path ahead is too smooth, it might be leading downhill. So, she stayed. Day after day. And slowly, people returned. They tasted her corn and nodded. Soft. Sweet. Well roasted. They told their neighbors. Her name started to spread across Elatu Street. Then the next junction. Then down to Unity Road. She added pear and coconut slices. Soon, she was known as the girl who roasts with class. One day, A banker in a suit passed by, sniffed, and turned back. He bought 2 pieces. Then 3. He returned every Friday. Then he asked her a question that changed her life. "Can you supply to our office canteen?" She said yes, even though she had no idea how to begin. That night, she used all her savings to buy a bigger stove. She called 2 girls in the neighborhood and trained them to roast corn her way, turning gently, brushing with salted butter, packing with dry clean leaves. Within 6 months, they were supplying 5 banks and 2 secondary schools. Mara registered her business officially as Tunde Roots Enterprises. She went for free business training at a youth empowerment program. Learned about branding, packaging, bulk sales. She bought transparent paper packs and labeled them Mara's Sweet Charcoal Corn, the taste of home. People started calling her Corn Queen. But the journey wasn't all sweet. Some market women called her a show-off. Is she the first to roast corn? One even reported her to local thugs, who tried to force her to pay daily charges to rent space she didn't own. She stood her ground. When they returned to harass her again, she went to the local government with proof of registration and business license. They backed off. She expanded again. She got a small kiosk, then another. She trained more women. Single mothers. Teenage girls. Widows. She gave them uniforms, yellow aprons with a smiley corn logo. Then came the day when she received a call from a big supermarket in Lekki. "Can we sell your corn snacks in our branches?" She nearly dropped the phone. Back in her one-room apartment, her mother wept when she saw the first contract. "God will bless you," she whispered. "You refuse to give up." Mara kissed her hand. "I only wanted us to eat." Her success wasn't born in offices. It was born in fire. In charcoal. In sweat. In hunger. It was born in silence when the world forgot her. But she didn't forget herself. So when she stood in that meeting room across from Clarara, it wasn't pride she wore. It was proof. Proof that a girl roasting corn in slippers could one day walk into a boardroom where her name was printed in gold letters. But the city? The city was watching. And so was Clarara. From her corner of the office, Clarara was beginning to feel something strange. It wasn't jealousy. It was fear. She couldn't believe how far Mara had come. And the more she saw Mara rise, the more her own past started to haunt her. What had she really done with her life? Was it all show and no meaning? Late that night, Clarara scrolled through Mara's Instagram page. She saw photos of Mara giving food to orphans. Photos of her team smiling beside branded corn bags. Even a post of Mara sitting beside a governor's wife at a food expo. Clarara's chest tightened. But instead of feeling inspired, she began to feel threatened. Because Clarara had always believed she was the better one. Now, the friend she mocked was miles ahead, unrespected. And so, a tiny whisper crept into her mind. What if Mara gets too powerful? What if she takes your place? She pushed the thought away. But it returned. What if you made her fall? The sun rose slowly over the city, casting gold across the glass windows of Baraza Foods Nigeria Limited. Inside the headquarters, the atmosphere buzzed. People were preparing for the new partnership. Everyone talked about Mara Tunde, the corn woman who had become a business sensation. But one person wasn't smiling. Clarara. She stood by the office window, arms folded, watching cars come and go. Mara was in the boardroom again. Laughing. Discussing. Taking up space like she owned it. Clarara's jaw tightened. Something inside her had started to rot. It wasn't just jealousy, it was fear wrapped in pride. She remembered how everyone once called her the Golden Girl. Now, people whispered about Mara. Even her own boss had started comparing their ideas. Mara's proposal is fresh and grounded, he said the day before. Clarara, take notes from her approach. Take notes? From a corn seller? No. She couldn't take that. When the day ended and the building became quiet, Clarara didn't go home. She stayed in her office. Alone. Lights off. Just the screen of her laptop casting shadows across her face. She opened a folder labeled Internal Affairs. Inside were company reports, emails, memos, vendor profiles. She searched Tunde Roots Enterprises. The files opened. Contracts. Delivery timetables. Bank records. Nothing illegal. Nothing suspicious. Just success. Then she saw a folder tagged Due Diligence, Mara Tunde. She clicked. There it was. A scanned document showing that Mara's company had once been fined 50,000 Nigerian nairas for operating without a proper license during her early days. Her heart jumped. She printed it. Then she picked up her phone and dialed a journalist friend from university. A woman named Angela who worked for a gossip blog called City Mirror Gist. "Hello," the woman answered, yawning. "I have a story for you," Clara said calmly. The next morning, the entire office buzzed like a beehive that had just been kicked. Phones rang. Messages flew around. Laptops clicked rapidly. Mara stepped into the office, noticing something strange. People weren't greeting her like before. Some avoided her eyes. Some just stared and whispered. She paused in the hallway and saw Clara standing by the coffee machine, pretending not to notice her. Mara stepped into the boardroom. That's when she saw it. Her face. Her name. Her business. On the projector screen. A headline from City Mirror Gist. Corn seller turned investor once fined for food violation, can she be trusted? Below it was a screenshot of the fine. Blown up. Underlined. And standing beside the screen was the company's legal officer, Mr. Oy. "We just got wind of this article," he began, glancing at Mara. "It might not be serious, but because of your growing role in the company, the board wants clarification." Mara's stomach tightened. But she didn't shake. "I know this fine," she said calmly. "It was from 4 years ago. I started my corn business without full paperwork. I've talked about it in interviews. I even used it as a case study during training. It was my mistake, but I fixed it. I've since renewed all my licenses and paid every government tax. You can verify." Mr. Oy blinked. "So, it's true." "Yes. And I'm not ashamed of it. It's part of my journey." The room went silent. Then Mr. Eromo Seal, the CEO, entered. He glanced at the screen and then at Mara. His face was hard to read. Later that afternoon, Mara walked into the elevator. The door was about to close when a hand stopped it. Clara stepped in. They stood side by side. Silence thick between them. Then Clara spoke. "So, tough morning." Mara turned her head slowly. "What are you trying to do?" Clara smirked. "Just asking." Mara took a breath. "Do you know what I went through to reach here, Clara? Do you think a blog post will shake me? Let me warn you, I'm not the girl you used to know. I've been through worse than bad press." Clara chuckled. "Good. Then this won't break you." The door opened. Mara stepped out but turned around one last time. "You're not competing with me, Clara. You're fighting your own insecurity. And trust me, no amount of gossip will heal that." Then she walked away. But as strong as she sounded, Mara knew this was just the beginning. Because the moment jealousy enters a room, something always breaks. And this time, it might be more than just a friendship. It was a rainy evening in the city. Thunder rolled gently over the rooftops of Suryalia, and the streets glistened with puddles reflecting orange traffic lights. Mara had just gotten home from another long day at the Baraza Foods office. She dropped her bag by the door, kicked off her shoes, and sat heavily on the brown sofa in the living room. Her mother was humming softly in the kitchen, stirring something on the gas cooker. Her younger brother, Tunde Jr., lay on the floor doing homework. Everything felt normal. Until there was a knock at the door. 3 slow knocks. Then silence. Mara frowned. It was nearly 8 p.m. Who could be knocking at this time and in the rain? She got up and opened the door. No one stood there. But on the ground was a large brown envelope. No name. No stamp. Just sealed tightly. She picked it up slowly, feeling the weight in her hands. Something inside shifted, a CD, maybe some papers. She shut the door, locked it, and sat at the table under the light bulb. Her heart began to beat a little faster. She opened the envelope. Inside were 3 things. 1. A black and white photo of her from 5 years ago, standing behind a makeshift corn stand. 2. A photocopy of a police report filed in Ajagun over a street fight, her name listed as a witness and possible participant. 3. A small flash drive. She blinked. What was this? She didn't remember being involved in a fight. Then it came back to her. A long time ago, just after her father died, 2 boys had stolen her corn from the stand. She had chased them, screaming. A crowd had formed. A fight broke out between the thieves and some bystanders. Mara had been caught in the chaos. A police van arrived. Everyone was taken to the station. She gave a statement and was let go after hours of questioning. She was never charged. Never taken to court. She had even forgotten it happened. But now, someone was digging it back up. Her hand shook as she plugged the flash drive into her laptop. A video played. It was grainy CCTV footage, obviously from someone's phone or a nearby shop's camera. It showed her standing beside a burning charcoal stove, shouting and pointing. People were pushing and throwing blows in the background. Then, for a brief moment, she picked up a stone, though she never threw it. The video paused. Text flashed on the screen in red. Is this the new face of city partnerships? Mara's chest turned cold. Who sent this? And why now? She didn't need to ask too many questions. Only one person had a reason to destroy her at this moment. Clara. The next morning, Mara didn't go to the office. Instead, she went to see someone who could help. Barrister Coley. A bold, no-nonsense female lawyer who ran a legal advice center for women entrepreneurs. Coley looked through the papers and the video. After a long pause, she leaned back and said, "This is not new, Mara. This is intimidation. Someone is trying to scare you." "But I'm clean," Mara replied. "I wasn't charged. I didn't commit a crime." Coley nodded. "That's good. But when it comes to public image, the truth doesn't always matter. It's about how the story is told. This," she tapped the flash drive, "can be twisted. So what do I do?" Coley folded her arms. "You have 2 options. 1. Stay quiet and pray the blackmailer gives up. Or 2. Own your truth before they use it against you." Mara looked down. Her fingers rubbed the edge of the table. Then she looked up with fire in her eyes. "I'll own it." That evening, Mara recorded a video on her phone. No makeup. No filters. Just her, sitting in her small apartment. She posted it online with the caption, "MY story, from the streets to strength." In the video, she said, "5 years ago, I was poor. I sold corn to feed my family. One day, I was caught in a street fight while trying to protect my goods. I was scared, hungry, angry. But I didn't throw any stone. I didn't harm anyone. I was questioned and released because I was innocent. Today, I run a growing food brand. And someone is trying to use my past to shame me. But I'm not ashamed. I built my life from charcoal and smoke. If you think that makes me less worthy, then you've never had to fight to eat. I'm not perfect. But I'm real. And I'm not going anywhere." Within 6 hours, the video had 50,000 views. People flooded the comments with support. "You're the real inspiration, Mara. Whoever tried to shame you just made you stronger. We see you. We support you." But far away, in her high-rise apartment, Clara watched the video on her iPad. Her mouth was dry. Her hand stiff. She had expected Mara to break. To cry. To run. Instead, she turned the attack into fuel. Worse, Mara now had more attention. More sympathy. More power. Clara bit her lip. What will it take to stop her? The morning sun filtered weakly through the glass windows of the sleek Baraza Foods headquarters in downtown Sorulia. The city buzzed with life, hawkers shouting their wares, traffic blaring, and the endless hum of people chasing their dreams. Inside, the air was thick with tension. Mara sat stiffly in the large boardroom, flanked by her closest allies. The polished mahogany table gleamed under the fluorescent lights, but the atmosphere was anything but warm. Her heart thumped like a drum in her chest. Today could change everything. Across from her sat Clara, cool and composed in a designer suit that whispered power and privilege. Her eyes were sharp, like daggers aimed right at Mara's throat. Around the table were the board members, some looking curious, others visibly skeptical. The CEO of Baraza Foods, Mr. Ikundeo, called the meeting to order. "Thank you all for coming on short notice," he said, glancing at Mara and Clara. "We have serious matters to discuss." Mara's palms were sweaty, but she forced herself to sit upright and meet the CEO's gaze. "Let me be clear," Clara began, her voice calm but cold. "Mara has become a liability to this company. Her past is no longer her past." Mara cut in, her voice steady but fierce. "I have been transparent with everyone. I shared my story because it's part of who I am. I'm proud of what I've overcome." Clara smiled, but it was the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Pride won't pay our investors' bills, Mara. People question your character. They doubt your leadership. This company needs someone with an unblemished reputation." One of the older board members, Mr. Adebola, leaned forward. "Clara has a point. We can't risk the company's image." The video stirred sympathy, yes, but also controversy. If the media digs deeper, more dirt could surface. Mara's heart sank. But before she could respond, a quiet voice broke the tension. "Mr. Chairman," said Leek, the company's chief operations officer. "If I may." Everyone turned to Leek. He was young, respected, and known for his fair judgment. "I have worked with Mara for 2 years now. I have seen her dedication, her hard work, and her honesty. Her past does not define her. It shapes her strength." Mara's eyes softened. Leek's words felt like a shield. The room murmured. Some nodded in agreement. Mr. Ikundeo cleared his throat. "This is a difficult decision. We want what's best for Baraza Foods and for all of you who work hard here." He turned to Clara. "Do you have any alternatives?" Clara's smile vanished, replaced by a thin line of frustration. "I propose we put Mara on a probation period. She stays but with limited responsibilities. If any issue arises, we reconsider her position." Mara's blood boiled. Probation? After everything she'd built? Leek shook his head. "That's unfair. Mara's leadership has brought us growth and new clients. We should stand behind her, not punish her for something that happened before she was even part of this company." A few more board members murmured agreement. Mr. Ikundeo held up his hand for silence. "We will vote. Those in favor of Mara continuing as CEO without probation, raise your hands." For hands went up. Those in favor of probation. 6 hands raised. Mr. Ikundeo sighed. "It's a narrow margin. But we will give Mara a chance, under strict oversight." Mara swallowed hard but nodded. Clara's eyes narrowed. This wasn't over. After the meeting, Clara cornered Mara in the hallway. "You think you've won," she whispered venomously. "You haven't seen the last of me. I will make sure everyone knows the truth about you." Mara looked her dead in the eye. "Then do your worst." "I'm not afraid." As Clara walked away, Mara's phone buzzed. A new message popped up. "You're playing a dangerous game. Watch your back." Mara's hands trembled, not from fear, but from adrenaline. The city outside buzzed with secrets and shadows. And Mara knew the real battle was just beginning. The city lights flickered outside Mara's apartment window as dusk settled over Srilia. The street below hummed with life, late-night hawkers packing up, distant car horns, and children laughing on their way home. But inside Mara's small living room, silence hung heavy. Her phone sat on the coffee table, screen glowing softly. The message from earlier still stared back at her. "You're playing a dangerous game. Watch your back." Mara's mind raced. Who could it be? Clarara? Or someone else? Either way, the warning was clear. She wasn't just battling in boardrooms or online anymore. The fight had turned personal. Her heartbeat quickened. She stood and paced the room, every sound making her jumpy. Her mother called from the kitchen, "Dinner's ready, dear." Mara forced a smile. Coming. She needed to be strong. For her family. For the company. For herself. Later that night, as the city slept, Mara's phone buzzed again. This time, it was an unknown number. She hesitated. Then answered. "Hello?" A deep, gravelly voice whispered, "Mara, you don't know me, but I know Clarara. She's planning to ruin you more than you think." Mara's breath caught. "Who are you?" "I'm someone who's seen what Clarara does behind closed doors. She's not the woman everyone thinks she is. Meet me tomorrow. Near the old market, by the water fountain. 7 p.m. Come alone." Before Mara could say anything, the line went dead. The next day, Mara's thoughts were tangled webs. Could she trust this stranger? Was it a trap? Still, she knew she had to try. As the clock neared 7, she left her apartment, dressed in a simple jacket and jeans. The air was cool but not cold. The old market square was a forgotten corner of the city, quiet except for the occasional vendor packing up. By the weathered water fountain, a tall figure in a hoodie waited. "Are you Mara?" the figure asked softly. "Yes." The stranger pulled back the hood to reveal a woman's face, early 30s, eyes sharp and alert. "My name is Ada. I work in the city's news agency. I've been tracking Clarara's shady dealings for months. She's bribing officials, sabotaging competitors, including you." Mara's pulse quickened. "Why help me?" Ada looked around nervously. "Because I believe in justice. And because Clarara has tried to silence anyone who stands in her way." Suddenly, footsteps approached. "Time's up," Ada said urgently. "Here." She handed Mara a small flash drive. "Evidence. Use it wisely." Before Mara could ask more, Ada melted into the shadows. Back in her apartment, Mara plugged the new flash drive into her laptop. Files appeared, videos, photos, and documents showing Clarara's secret meetings with corrupt officials, forged contracts, and threats against competitors. This was explosive. Mara's fingers trembled. With this, she could finally expose Clarara. But the risk was enormous. The city outside buzzed on, unaware that two old friends were now locked in a battle that would shake their world. The night was far from over. Mara sat alone, staring at the screen, knowing one thing. The shadows in the night were watching. And they were closing in fast. The early morning sun barely pierced through the dusty windows of Mara's apartment. The city was just waking up, but Mara had been wide awake for hours, her mind racing. The flash drive Ada had given her lay open on the laptop screen, files filled with damning evidence against Clarara. Photos of secret meetings with city officials, audio recordings of bribes, and documents exposing forged contracts. It was everything Mara needed to turn the tide. But there was a problem. Clarara was powerful. She wasn't just a woman with money and influence, she was ruthless. Mara knew that exposing Clarara meant putting herself in danger, but it was the only way to reclaim her life, her company, and her dignity. She took a deep breath and began typing a carefully worded letter addressed to the city's leading news outlet, attaching the files and detailing the corruption she had uncovered. Meanwhile, in Clarara's high-rise office, overlooking the sprawling cityscape, she sipped her morning coffee with an icy smile. Her phone buzzed with messages, some congratulatory, some ominous. She ignored them all until a new alert popped up on her screen. Your secret won't stay hidden much longer. Her eyes narrowed. The game had changed. She immediately called her most trusted aide, Joseph. Find out everything about this Mara. Who's helping her, what she knows, and how far she's willing to go. I want her stopped before this goes public. Joseph nodded. Consider it done. Back at Mara's apartment, she was already feeling the first waves of anxiety. The letter had been sent just hours ago, and she waited nervously for a response. Her phone suddenly lit up. An incoming call from Ada. Good news, Ada said, her voice low but excited. The news station received your files and they're preparing a primetime exposé. It's going to blow this city wide open. Mara's heart pounded. Are you sure they won't pull back? Mara asked. Ada hesitated. Clarara has power, yes. But the evidence is airtight. The journalists are on your side. As the evening rolled in, Mara found herself surrounded by friends and loyal employees, all anxious and hopeful. The news bulletin began at exactly 8 p.m. The anchor's voice filled the room. Tonight, a shocking report has emerged, revealing a web of corruption involving one of the city's most prominent businesswomen, Clarara Okoye. Documents and recordings obtained by our investigative team expose bribery, forged contracts, and attempts to sabotage competitors. Mara's breath caught as the screen flashed images, photos of Clarara meeting with officials in secret, audio clips with clear voices, and screenshots of forged paperwork. The city was watching. Suddenly, Mara's phone rang again. This time, it was Clarara. I see you've decided to play dirty, Clarara's voice hissed. You think this will destroy me? It will destroy you. Mara's voice was steady. I'm not afraid. I'm fighting for what's right. Clarara laughed, a cold, bitter sound. You'll regret this, Mara. This isn't over. The line went dead. In the days that followed, the city was ablaze with news, whispers, and gossip. Clarara's empire began to crack as investigations were launched. Yet, Mara could feel the pressure mounting. Threats in the shadows, strange cars following her, and whispered warnings in the wind. But despite it all, Mara felt something she hadn't felt in years, hope. Hope that justice could be served. Hope that friendship, even when broken, could lead to redemption. And deep inside, a fierce determination to survive whatever came next. The tension in Mara's company was palpable. Ever since the exposé aired, every employee seemed on edge, watching their backs, whispering in corners. Business meetings were terse, and Mara felt eyes lingering a little too long on her, filled with suspicion or fear. She had hoped her loyal team would stand firm. But trust was harder to find than she imagined. One afternoon, Mara sat alone in her office, scrolling through emails when a message caught her eye. It was from an anonymous sender. Not everyone around you is who they claim to be. Watch carefully. The words hit Mara like a punch. Was someone close to her working with Clarara? She had to know. Mara decided to act discreetly. She summoned her most trusted assistant, Daniel, a calm and sharp man who had been with her since the early days. Daniel, Mara said quietly, I need your help. I suspect there's a mole in the company, someone feeding information to Clarara. Daniel's face darkened. That's serious. Do you have any leads? No, but I want you to start monitoring communications, emails, calls, everything. Quietly. We can't afford to scare people or tip off the traitor. Daniel nodded, understanding the gravity. Days passed in a nervous blur. Mara buried herself in work, but the feeling of betrayal gnawed at her. One evening, as she prepared to leave the office, Daniel approached her with a folder. We've been tracking a lot of unusual activity, he said. There's one name that keeps popping up, Tunde. Mara's heart sank. Tunde was her head of sales, a man she had trusted implicitly. Always cheerful, hard-working, and loyal, or so she thought. What kind of activity? Mara asked, her voice shaking. Daniel handed her the folder. Inside were emails between Tunde and a mysterious address. The messages discussed company strategies, upcoming product launches, and even references to the evidence Mara had leaked. The language was cautious but unmistakable. Mara felt a storm rising inside her, shock, anger, betrayal. How could Tunde do this? How long had he been working for Clarara? That night, Mara confronted Tunde in the conference room. Tunde, we need to talk, she said firmly. He looked up, surprised but quickly masking it with a polite smile. I've heard some troubling things, Mara continued. Emails, meetings. Are you working with Clarara? Tunde's smile faded. Mara, I don't know what you're talking about. She pushed the folder across the table. These say otherwise. For a moment, Tunde was silent. Then, quietly, he said, it's not that simple. Mara's eyes narrowed. Explain. He sighed. Clarara has been threatening my family. If I didn't cooperate, bad things would happen to them. I didn't want to betray you, but I was scared. Mara's anger clashed with her sympathy. She wanted to believe him, but trust was fragile now. The days that followed were a whirlwind. Mara wrestled with her feelings, the sting of betrayal, the weight of leadership, and the need to protect her company. She decided to keep Tunde close, watching him carefully while devising a plan to outsmart Clarara once and for all. Her circle was shrinking, the enemy closing in, but Mara refused to give up. The battle for her future was far from over. Mara sat at the small cafe table on a busy city street, the noise of traffic and chatter swirling around her like the storm in her mind. Her eyes flicked anxiously to the entrance every few minutes. Today was the day she would meet an unexpected ally, someone who might change everything. Ada had made the introduction, though Mara still wasn't sure if she could fully trust this new figure. Moments later, a tall, sharply dressed man stepped through the door. His confident stride and calm smile didn't match the weight of secrecy Mara knew he carried. Good afternoon, Mara, he said, sliding into the seat across from her. I'm Samuel Nwosu. Mara nodded warily. I've heard your name, but I don't know much about you. Samuel chuckled softly. That's by design. I prefer to work behind the scenes. He leaned in, lowering his voice. I've been watching Clarara for years. She's dangerous, but she has enemies, powerful ones. I believe our goals align. Mara studied him carefully. Why should I trust you? Samuel's eyes met hers steadily. Because if Clarara wins, none of us will survive her reign. But together we might stand a chance. Over the next few weeks, Samuel's involvement opened doors Mara never knew existed. He introduced her to key city council members quietly opposed to Clarara's corruption. He shared intelligence gathered from his network, shady deals, hidden accounts, and vulnerable allies within Clarara's ranks. Yet, even as new alliances formed, enemies lurked closer than Mara liked. Clarara was tightening her grip on the city, and Mara's own company was under increasing pressure. Suppliers suddenly demanded higher prices, contracts were delayed, and rumors began circulating to undermine Mara's reputation. One evening, as Mara prepared to leave the office, her phone buzzed with a message. You're playing a dangerous game. Back off or suffer the consequences. The message was unsigned, but Mara knew exactly where it came from. That night, Mara met with Daniel and Tunde in the dim light of her living room. We can't back down now, Mara said firmly. Samuel's network gives us a chance, but Clarara's retaliation is escalating. Daniel frowned. Tunde, how much longer can you keep your cover? If Clarara suspects you, we're all at risk. Tunde looked tired. I'm holding on, but I need a plan. I can't do this alone. Mara nodded. We'll find a way. We have to. As the weeks passed, tensions rose. Mara's small company became a battleground for power and survival. Meetings were held in secret, decisions weighed carefully, and every move was calculated. But amidst the struggle, Mara found strength in unexpected places: a loyal employee who risked everything to protect a vital document, a journalist eager to expose the truth, and Samuel, whose quiet determination inspired her. One evening, after a long day, Mara stood on her apartment balcony, staring at the city skyline glittering with lights. She thought of Clara, the woman who had once been her friend, now her fiercest adversary. She thought of the risks ahead. And she made a silent vow. No matter what it took, she would fight for justice, for her family, and for the city that had shaped her. Mara's office was dimly lit, the soft hum of the city outside barely penetrating the walls. Maps, documents, and photos were spread across her desk, a chaotic puzzle she and her team were desperate to solve. Tonight was crucial. After weeks of gathering intelligence and careful planning, Mara was finally ready to set the trap for Clara. "Everyone knows their role," Mara said, her voice steady but fierce. "We expose Clara's corruption publicly, and we cut off her support once and for all." Daniel, her trusted assistant, nodded. "Samuel's contacts are in place. The journalists are ready to publish once we have undeniable proof." Tunde looked tense but determined. "I'll keep feeding them information from the inside. But we have to be careful. One wrong move and Clara will disappear with everything." Mara took a deep breath. That's why timing is everything. The plan was simple but risky. Clara had been arranging a secret deal with a high-ranking city official, exchanging favors for illegal contracts. This meeting, set to happen in a secluded hotel suite, was the perfect opportunity to catch her red-handed. Samuel's team had placed hidden cameras and microphones, while Daniel coordinated with the journalists waiting nearby. Mara and Tunde would be the eyes and ears on the ground. The night of the operation, Mara dressed in dark clothes and kept her phone close. As she and Tunde approached the hotel, her heart pounded. Every step felt heavy with anticipation. Inside, the hotel was quiet except for muffled voices coming from the suite. Mara peered through the slightly cracked door. There was Clara speaking smoothly to the official, handing over envelopes thick with cash. Tunde discreetly recorded everything. Suddenly, footsteps echoed down the corridor. Mara's breath caught. "Someone's coming," she whispered. They ducked into a shadowed corner as the hotel staff appeared, checking the halls. Minutes felt like hours. When the coast was clear, Mara and Tunde slipped out, their mission successful, for now. Back at the safe house, the evidence was overwhelming. The journalists were stunned. The exposé would shake the city's foundations. But just as Mara thought victory was near, her phone rang. The caller ID showed Clara's number. Mara's hand trembled as she answered. "I know what you're doing," Clara's cold voice said. "You think this ends with a sting? You have no idea who you're messing with." Mara swallowed her fear. "This ends soon, Clara. And you'll be the one paying the price." That night, Mara stared out at the city lights, the weight of the battle pressing down on her. She had taken a huge step forward, but the war was far from over. In the shadows, Clara was already planning her next move. The city never slept, but for Mara, sleep had become a distant memory. After the sting operation, her life transformed overnight. The exposé had aired on every channel, shaking the city's elite and exposing Clara's corruption for all to see. But victory was expensive. Mara's phone rang relentlessly. Calls from reporters, supporters, and government officials flooded in. Yet beneath the applause lurked danger. Within days, strange things began to happen. Her car was vandalized, tires slashed, windows cracked. At the office, someone tampered with the computers, erasing files critical to her case. Even her home wasn't safe anymore. One night, she found a threatening note pinned to her door. "Tell your story carefully, or else." Despite the threats, Mara refused to back down. She called a meeting with Daniel, Tunde, and Samuel. "We knew this wouldn't be easy," Mara said. "Clara is fighting back with everything she's got." Daniel looked grim. "We need to increase security and consider going public with the threats." Tunde, who had regained some confidence since the sting, added, "We can't let fear control us." The city needs to see that standing up to corruption has a cost, but it's worth it. Samuel nodded. I've arranged for some trusted allies in the city council to support you openly. You won't be alone. But the pressure wasn't just physical, it tore at Mara's heart. Her family, worried for her safety, urged her to stop. Mara's mother cried, pleading, "Please, Mara, this isn't worth your life." Her father was quieter but firm. "We raised you to be strong, but you don't have to carry this burden alone." Mara loved them deeply, but the fight was hers. She couldn't turn away now. One night, Mara sat in her darkened apartment, the city lights twinkling below like distant stars. Her phone buzzed. A message from Clarara. "You think you're a hero? Heroes die alone." Mara's fingers hovered over the keyboard, her heart pounding. Then she typed back simply, "Maybe. But I'd rather die fighting than live in silence." That resolve sparked something in the city. Supporters began organizing rallies, demanding justice. Journalists dug deeper, uncovering more of Clarara's lies. Mara realized that the price of truth was high, but so was the price of silence. The battle lines were drawn clearly now. Mara wasn't just fighting for herself, she was fighting for the city, for justice, for every voice silenced by fear. And no matter what Clarara threw her way, Mara knew one thing. She would never give up. The city skyline stretched out before Mara as she walked briskly down the crowded streets, her mind still racing from the night's earlier events. She had just come from a meeting with Samuel, where they strategized their next move against Clarara's tightening grip on the city. The tension was thicker than ever, and Mara felt like she was walking a tightrope, one misstep, and everything could collapse. Her phone vibrated in her pocket. She glanced at the screen, an unknown number. "Hello?" Mara answered cautiously. A deep voice replied, calm but firm. "Mara, I've been watching your fight from the sidelines. I want to help." Mara frowned. "Who is this?" "You can call me Victor." Before she could ask more, the line went dead. Curiosity piqued, Mara decided to meet this mysterious Victor. Samuel was wary but agreed to come along for the meeting. They arranged to meet at a quiet cafe far from the usual city buzz. When Victor arrived, he looked nothing like the ruthless political figures Mara expected. He was a middle-aged man with kind eyes, dressed simply but with an unmistakable air of authority. "I'm a former city official," Victor explained. "I've seen what Clarara can do. She's powerful, yes, but her enemies have weaknesses. I know the city's secrets, the hidden alliances, and the hidden threats." Mara listened carefully. Victor's knowledge was precise, and his warnings rang true. "Why help me?" Mara asked. Victor smiled faintly. "Because I believe in this city. And because sometimes the fight for justice comes from the most unexpected places." Over the next days, Victor's involvement changed everything. He provided access to confidential documents, introduced Mara to quiet but influential supporters, and helped devise new strategies to weaken Clarara's network. At the same time, Clarara sensed the shift. She called a meeting with her closest allies. "We have a new player," Clarara said coldly. "Someone with deep ties to the city's heart. We must move fast or lose everything." Back with Mara, the team was energized but cautious. "We can't underestimate Clarara," Samuel warned. "She's ruthless." Daniel, always pragmatic, added, "Victor's help is a game-changer, but trust must be earned." Mara nodded. "We'll watch closely. But for now, we use every advantage we have." As the weeks passed, Mara and her allies executed a series of carefully planned moves. Leaks to the media, investigations launched by the city council, and a growing public outcry made Clarara's position increasingly precarious. One evening, as Mara prepared for a crucial city council hearing, Victor stopped by her office. "I need to tell you something important," he said, lowering his voice. "Clarara knows about me. She's already trying to discredit me." Mara's eyes widened. "We have to protect you." Victor shook his head. "No. It's part of the plan. If Clarara targets me, she exposes herself. the city will see her true face. That night, Mara stood by her window, looking out over the city that had become the battlefield for their fight. The stakes had never been higher, and the alliances never more fragile. But for the first time in a long while, Mara felt hope, a spark that maybe, just maybe, the city could be saved. The morning sun filtered through the tall windows of the city council chamber, casting long shadows on the polished wood floors. The air was thick with anticipation. Today, Mara would stand before the city's most powerful leaders and reveal everything she had uncovered about Clarara's corruption. The chamber buzzed quietly with murmurs as council members took their seats, reporters set up cameras, and the public awaited the hearing. Mara's heart pounded in her chest, but her face remained calm. This was the moment she had worked so hard for. Victor sat beside her, a quiet pillar of support. Samuel, Daniel, and Tunde filled the seats behind. Their presence gave Mara strength. When the council chairperson called the hearing to order, silence fell. Mara rose, adjusted her notes, and began. Honorable council members, citizens of our city, Mara's voice echoed clearly. Today, I present evidence of a scheme that threatens the integrity of our government and the future of our community. Clarara, a once respected figure, has abused her position for personal gain, manipulating contracts and betraying public trust. She clicked to a slideshow of documents, photos, and recorded conversations. The chamber gasped at the revelations, envelopes of cash, forged contracts, and secret meetings. Clarara, sitting across the room, remained composed but her eyes narrowed. When Mara finished, Clarara stood and spoke with practiced charm. These accusations are baseless, Clarara said smoothly. This is a personal vendetta. I demand proof, not rumors. Mara's evidence spoke louder than words. The room shifted. Then, an unexpected moment, Victor stepped forward. I know Clarara well, he said firmly. Her corruption goes deeper than you realize. I'm willing to testify to protect this city. Gasps filled the room. Clarara's facade faltered. Questions flew from council members. Mara answered confidently, supported by Victor's insider knowledge. The media captured every moment. Outside the chamber, crowds gathered, rallying behind Mara's courage. But the fight was far from over. As the hearing ended, Clarara's allies whispered threats. The city's power dynamics trembled. Mara left the chamber, knowing the price of truth was steep, but the city's hope was rising. As the city council chamber emptied, the real battle was just beginning, not in the public eye, but behind closed doors where power truly played its game. Mara and her team exited into the bright sunlight, met by reporters shouting questions, flashes from cameras capturing every moment. But Mara's eyes were already scanning the crowd, alert for any sign of trouble. She felt a sharp tug at her sleeve. It was Victor. We need to meet privately, he said, his voice low and urgent. There are forces working against us even now. They slipped into a nearby cafe known for discreet conversations. The wall seemed to close in as Victor pulled out a folder thick with documents. Clarara isn't just fighting to save her reputation. She's rallying powerful allies, business leaders, council members, even some from law enforcement, Victor warned. We're not just dealing with a corrupt official. This is a network. Mara's stomach tightened. The fight had grown larger than she imagined. Meanwhile, in the shadowed halls of the city's most prestigious hotel, Clarara convened her secret council. The room was tense, the air heavy with cigar smoke and whispered threats. Victor is a threat we underestimated, Clarara said coldly, pacing. He's turned the tide against us. One of her closest allies, a wealthy businessman named Kofi, nodded. We must cut him out and discredit Mara before the council makes any decisions. Clarara's eyes flashed with determination. Do whatever it takes. We will not lose this city. Back at the cafe, Mara and Victor planned their next move. They decided to expose Clarara's hidden connections by gathering more evidence and reaching out to those willing to testify anonymously. Tunde suggested we need to widen the circle of trust. Find others Clarara's hurt or betrayed. Daniel agreed, but we must be careful. One leak, and Clarara's allies will silence us. Late that night, Mara's phone buzzed with a cryptic message. Meet me at the old warehouse by the docks. Alone. I have something you need. Her heart pounded. Could this be another trap? Or an unexpected ally? She debated telling her team but decided some risks must be taken alone. As the moon cast shadows over the city, Mara headed toward the docks, unaware that every step was watched. The old warehouse was dark and eerie. Mara's footsteps echoed as she approached. Suddenly, a figure stepped out of the shadows. Thank you for coming, whispered a familiar voice. It was Lydia, a former employee of Clarara's company, who had mysteriously disappeared months ago. I've seen things Clarara can't let anyone know about, Lydia said, eyes darting nervously. I want to help. Mara's pulse quickened. This could be the break they needed. But as Lydia spoke, a faint sound behind Mara made her spin around, too late. A group of men blocked the exit. You should have stayed away, one growled. Mara's heart raced as she realized the true danger lurking in the shadows of the city she was trying to save. Mara's breath caught as the men closed in, their faces shadowed and cold. The warehouse, once a quiet place of whispered secrets, now echoed with the sound of heavy footsteps and tense silence. Lydia's eyes widened in fear, but she stood firm beside Mara. We won't let you get away with this, Mara said, her voice steady despite the pounding in her chest. One of the men sneered. You're brave, but brave doesn't mean smart. Before Mara could react, a rough hand grabbed her arm, pulling her backward. Lydia tried to intervene, but another man shoved her aside. The men tied Mara's hands behind her back, their grip tight and unforgiving. The warehouse's cold concrete walls seemed to close in. Why are you doing this? Mara demanded. What do you want? The leader stepped forward, his eyes hard. Clarara doesn't like troublemakers. You're causing problems for powerful people. Mara's mind raced. She had to stay calm. Panic would only make things worse. Meanwhile, miles away, Victor sensed something was wrong. He had been waiting for Mara's report but heard nothing. He called Samuel urgently. Mara's missing. The message she got, it was a trap. Samuel's jaw clenched. We have to find her. Back at the warehouse, Mara heard footsteps approaching. Clarara herself appeared, elegant but menacing. So, the little fighter thought she could take me down. Clarara said with a cold smile. You're in over your head. Mara met her gaze. This city deserves better than you. Clarara laughed. We'll see how long your spirit lasts in the dark. Just as hope seemed to fade, the sound of sirens pierced the night. Victor, Samuel, and a group of allies stormed the warehouse, their determination fierce. A chaotic struggle erupted. Men scrambled, some tried to flee, others fought back. In the confusion, Victor found Mara, quickly cutting her bonds. Are you okay? He asked, helping her up. Mara nodded, though exhaustion weighed heavily on her. Together, they escaped the warehouse as police secured the scene. Outside, the city lights seemed brighter than before. Mara took a deep breath, feeling the cold air fill her lungs. The fight was far from over, but she had survived. And now, more than ever, she was ready. The morning after the warehouse ordeal dawned cold and clear, but for Mara, it felt like a new beginning. Though her body ached from the night's struggles, her spirit burned brighter than ever. Victor sat across from her in a small cafe, the quiet hum of the city outside contrasting sharply with the storm of thoughts inside Mara's mind. Around them, people went about their daily routines, unaware of the battle quietly reshaping the city's future. We were lucky last night, Victor began, stirring his coffee slowly. If you hadn't been careful, it could have been much worse. Mara nodded, tracing the rim of her cup. I've never felt so close to losing everything, but I can't let fear stop me. Clarara's grip on this city has to end. Victor's eyes shone with determination. We've gained something too. Lydia's testimony could open new doors. There are others, people Clarara has silenced or threatened. They're waiting for someone to stand up. Meanwhile, Samuel, Tunde, and Daniel had been reaching out to trusted contacts, journalists, activists, even some council members quietly disillusioned with Clarara's reign. Slowly, an underground network of allies was forming, united by a common goal: justice. Mara spent the next days buried in meetings, calls, and planning sessions. Each piece of evidence, each new witness, added strength to their case. But the pressure was immense. Clarara's retaliations grew more brazen. Anonymous threats, sabotage attempts, and relentless rumors aimed to break Mara's resolve. Yet every challenge only fueled Mara's resolve. One afternoon, while reviewing documents, Mara received an unexpected visitor, Amina, a city council member who had remained neutral publicly but now stepped forward in secret. "I've watched what you've done," Amina said quietly. "I believe you. And I want to help. But we must be careful. Clarara's allies run deep." Mara felt a surge of hope. "Together, we can change this city." As word spread, more voices joined their cause. The city, once quiet in the face of corruption, began to whisper, then shout, for change. Mara knew the road ahead was still long and dangerous. Clarara would not surrender easily. But with allies old and new, with truth as their weapon, the tide was turning. That night, Mara stood on the balcony of her small apartment, looking out over the city lights. The skyline glittered like 1,000 promises. She whispered to herself, "This is just the beginning." The city was alive with tension. Word had spread like wildfire. Mara and her growing alliance were preparing to confront Clarara and her powerful network once and for all. The usually bustling streets seemed charged with anticipation, as if the whole city held its breath, waiting for the moment when truth would finally be laid bare. Mara stood before the towering glass building that housed the city council chambers. Her heart pounded, but her resolve was steel. This wasn't just a fight for herself anymore, it was for every person who had suffered under Clarara's shadow. Inside the chamber, council members gathered, the room thick with unease. Clarara sat confidently at the front, surrounded by her closest allies. Her smile was sharp, her eyes cold. Mara entered with Victor, Amina, and several witnesses, including Lydia, who now had the courage to speak openly. When the council meeting began, Mara took the floor. "This city deserves honesty. We cannot allow corruption to continue hiding in the dark," she declared, voice steady and clear. She laid out the evidence meticulously, financial records, testimonies, secret meetings, all tying Clarara's network to years of manipulation and abuse of power. Clarara stood to respond, her voice dripping with contempt. "These accusations are baseless," she said. "This is a personal vendetta orchestrated by those who envy my success." But then, unexpected voices rose from the crowd. Business leaders, former allies, and even a few council members began to speak, each telling their own story of Clarara's corruption and coercion. The room buzzed with shock and disbelief. Suddenly, a man stepped forward. It was Mr. Okoye, a prominent figure who had long been rumored to be under Clarara's influence. "I was afraid," he admitted. "But no more. It's time for change." His confession was the breaking point. The council voted unanimously to launch a full investigation into Clarara's dealings. Police officers moved quickly to begin the process, and Clarara was removed from her position pending the outcome. Outside the chamber, the city erupted in celebration. Mara was hailed as a hero, but she knew this victory was only the beginning. That evening, Mara and Victor stood on the rooftop overlooking the city. "We've started something big," Victor said softly. "But the city will always need people like us, watching, fighting." Mara smiled, eyes on the horizon. "I'm ready. No matter what comes next." The city lights flickered below, full of stories yet to be told, stories of hope, betrayal, and the unbreakable bonds of friendship. The victory in the council chambers felt like a breath of fresh air, but Mara knew the battle was far from over. As the city celebrated, she found herself haunted by memories from years ago, memories that Clarara would do anything to keep buried. One evening, Mara sat alone in her small apartment, the city's lights flickering through the window. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number: "If you want the truth about Clarara, meet me at the Old Put tonight. Come alone." A shiver ran down her spine. The old pier was a forgotten place, where the city's past whispered in the waves and shadows. But Mara's curiosity and her need for answers was stronger than her fear. Later that night, the pier was cloaked in darkness. The salty air mixed with the distant sounds of the city. Mara's footsteps echoed as she walked along the cracked wooden planks. Suddenly, a figure stepped out from behind a rusted shipping container. It was a man, his face half hidden by the hood of his jacket. "You don't know me," he said quietly, "but I knew your parents." Mara's heart pounded. Her parents had always been simple traders, but she'd never known much about their past. They were caught in something bigger, the man continued. Clarara's family wasn't always the powerful force you see today. There's a story of betrayal, greed, and secrets that runs deeper than you think. The man handed Mara a worn envelope filled with old letters, photographs, and documents, proof of a tangled history involving Clarara's rise and Mara's family's downfall. Mara flipped through the papers, the pieces of a forgotten puzzle slowly fitting together. Clarara's family had once been rivals to Mara's parents in business, but their ambitions had led to ruin and heartbreak. "This changes everything," Mara whispered. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" "Because it's dangerous," the man said grimly. Clarara made sure of that. As Mara looked out at the dark waters, she realized the fight was not just for the city, it was personal. The shadows of the past were coming to light, and the truth could shake the foundations of everything. Back in the city, Clarara's allies were regrouping. News of Mara's new discovery spread, sparking fear and desperation. In a dimly lit room, Clarara clenched her fists. "If Mara thinks she can destroy me with old stories, she's wrong. I will protect my family's legacy, no matter the cost." Mara returned home that night with a renewed sense of purpose. The city was still full of secrets waiting to be uncovered, and she was ready to face whatever darkness came next.